Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Election Day Tuesday edition, and I'm happy to have my guest today, Drew. Happy to be with me on Election Day. Welcome to Schaftlein Report. We've been waiting a year for this day, and here we are.
Yep, you're right. This is the day. We've been talking about it for a year anticipating, this moment, and here we are.
Well, despite the Democrats' claims, we are in a democracy. We knew we would get to vote today, or previously voting. And Drew, based upon every polling mechanism out there, Republicans are poised to have a big Election Day vote. But you and I have said this over and over and over. Every person who, whatever party affiliation, you need to get out there, exercise your constitutional right, vote, and then let's have the votes be tallied. We don't want to take anything for granted. If you're in line, stay in line. It's really important, Drew, that I think tonight that we not only win, but we have a decisive win tonight, because if it's anything less than a decisive win, the media is going to try to spin it into, oh, well, it's just a typical midterm election.
Yeah, there's nothing typical about that. We've addressed that for many weeks here, and the Democrats were, they refused to address any of the problems that voters were concerned about, refused to change course, tried to make this election about something that Americans did not care about, and here we are, and they're getting what they deserve. Yeah. And look, I mean, kind of conservative estimates tonight, are saying, 51 seats in the House for Republicans, but it could be as many as 53 if, Adam Laxalt in Nevada wins, for example. So I think Senate and House, we take majorities in, and I'm hopeful that the Senate, we can really crush them and get 53.
Yeah, I'm in your camp too. I mean, Joe Biden is sitting here right now today, Reuters Ipsos poll, his approval rating, presidential approval rating is 39%. And let me put that in context here. We don't always agree with CNN, but CNN put together a piece today showing 5 credible polling outfits. And I'm not talking Republican leaning, Democratic. I'm talking about 5 credible polling outfits. Drew, CNN's poll of polls median average has Biden at 40% approval, 54% disapproval. I believe that CNN poll is correct. I mean, it's 1 point separate from the Ipsos poll, but if you're sitting here at 39 or 40%, Drew, it is shaping up between Biden's approval rating and the Democrats' total disregard for the economy and the issues you brought up. It does look like tonight it's going to be good, because not only that, but congressional generic ballot. Now, don't believe what you saw on NBC or ABC over the weekend showed it tied. The average is Republicans +2. Drew, translate what Republicans +2, Biden at 39 to 40%. What does that mean for the electorate tonight?
Yeah, I mean that looks like just running away with some of these election results in the end. I mean that looks like, the shellacking that we've been promising, and this, so-called tsunami. I will say this. I mean, look, we talked about this before. It is typical for the, party that is not in power, in these midterm elections to lose power, right? I mean, it's typical for this kind of thing to happen historically, right? You've got Democrats, and then midterms come along and the Republicans come in. So I mean, that's why I say I expect nothing short of this, just absolute massive defeat of Democrats, because it's typical historically for that to happen in the first place. And when you put together and factor in all the different things, the terrible economy, the approval numbers for Joe Biden, it's not looking good. And you know what's funny? So Joe Biden, he called a lid at 11:30 a.m. today. He's going to hide. He's going into hiding. He just went out there on the campaign trail, unpopular Joe, stooping for these candidates, and now he's going to go hide in the White House for the rest of the day.
Oh, so he's not even, no more public appearances today for our president.
He's no schedule, nothing on his schedule. He's hiding for the rest of the day. Before noon, he called a lid on Election Day.
Folks, I can't help but laugh at that. I mean, they put a lid on a lot of stuff pretty early, but noon on Election Day. My goodness. Look, I'm in your camp on this. I think we've been fairly conservative on on our show about what we think is going to happen. But what I'm really seeing, and I'm hoping tonight, I'm hoping for a decisive victory tonight. And I'm not just talking about 51 or 52 Senate seats, and we're going to go through them in a little bit. But there is an outside shot that it could be significantly higher. We'll see how it breaks. The key, in my view, tonight, Drew, is can Republicans overcome the deficit that they clearly have, whereas right now Democratic voters, about 2-1 to 3-1 in certain states, in early voting more Democrats voted. My belief is that Republicans will show up today, turnout will be significant. Look, whatever frustration Republicans have built up, and there's been a lot of it, I really believe our voters are going to turn out in record numbers. And at the end of the day tonight, I think the best prognostications, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, are a solid Republican victory in the Senate, a solid Republican victory in the House. You know, we may not pick up the 40 to 50 seats some of these people are talking about just because of the way redistricting has been. I mean, there's not that many competitive seats out there. But in an environment like this, when the Democrats have taken all their energy, and think about this, folks, Drew and I have talked about this extensively. The key issues that most of the American people want addressed are the economy, inflation, gas prices, crime, border security, education for their kids. That's the issues that most Americans are talking about. And what have the Democrats focused their entire campaign on? Abortion? Voting rights? Give me a break. Voting rights, we're having record turnout in a midterm election. Climate change? Do you think anyone gives a rat's ass about climate change when gas prices are over $5 a gallon in a lot of the country? And electricity bills, Drew, those electricity bills going up, home heating oil bills going up. Drew, the issues that we've talked about are on the side of the Republicans because the Democrats failed miserably to address these. And I don't know who came up with this strategy of tying everything to abortion, to climate change, to voting rights, to the democracies at risk. But whoever it is, they ought to get fired.
Yeah, well, that just shows how desperate they are and also how devoted they are to their radical agenda. They're not going to acknowledge that they've done anything wrong. They'd rather lie about circumstances. They'd rather condescend to the American people than actually come and offer solutions. I mean, this is the takeaway for Americans right now that are going to the polls. The Democratic Party, by and large, I mean, yes, they're a totalitarian party ideologically, but they do not care about the American people. They believe that we are peons and how dare we ask for anything? How dare we? I mean, they look at us as their servants, and that's antithetical to the Constitution. But look, I mean, our gut and our intellect together, I think tell us where this is going. And enthusiasm is huge in these types of elections and midterms. And I mean, why is anyone turning up to vote for Democrats? You know, I mean, what's driving their base to show up and I guess combat Republicans showing up at the polls? I mean, you've got independents that are jumping ship. You've got our numbers, vastly expanding right now and growing. And I mean, why? I mean, how many people are, inflation, everything's terrible, but, we got to vote to save democracy. I mean, that's so absurd to your point. I mean, that person should be fired.
Well, hopefully tonight the Democratic Party is fired. I want to give everyone a little example here. Just when you hear these approval numbers, let me sort of do a little bit of mathematics for you and break it down. When you hear Joe Biden has a 40% approval rating, let me give you some perspective on that, folks. The country is made up of approximately 34% Democrats, 32% Republicans, and the balance is independents. That's like 34% independents, okay? So if you just take the Democratic Party and say 90% of those 34% approve of Biden, now you're coming up to like 28 points. If you take the Republicans, 32% of Republicans, and say only 10% of Republicans approve of what Biden's, that's 3 more points. Now you're at 31. And independents, who, again, they make up about a third of it, if their approval rating of Biden is sitting here at, say, 40%, okay, it's actually not 40, folks. It's actually close to 30. Because if you take 30% of 34, okay, it comes out to about 10. Well, if you take 28 points for Democrats, 3 for Republicans, and 10 for independents, that's 41% approval rating right there. So that tells me that if independent voters are sitting here 70-30 against Biden, listen, you can say all you want about radical liberal Democrats. We know how they're going to go. But these independent voters are going to swing a lot of elections, Drew. And what I'm really interested to see tonight is suburban housewives. You know, the ones that really went for Joe Biden in 2020, who are really affected by the inflation, by the education crisis, and the crime issue. I want to see where those suburban voters come out. And two other things I really want to look at tonight are the predictions of Republicans hitting, say, 40-45% of the Hispanic vote. Is that going to come true? I feel really good about that because we have some outstanding candidates. Final piece on the turnout models. Will African American men vote Republican at a 17-18% clip? What are your thoughts on those three demographic groups, Drew, and how do you see it playing out tonight?
Look, I mean, the Democrats know they're in trouble if they don't get, a vast majority of the black vote, right? I mean, that's something they've carved out and depended upon since, honestly, 1930s when they started to get that vote. I mean, just because it's interesting, I think it's relevant. Look, Herbert Hoover, 1928 or so, he won with a majority of the black vote. He was a Republican president. But no Republican since him got a majority of the vote. It shifted over to FDR, and then the Democrats concocted the big lie, this big shift where they suddenly became the party of blacks, and Republicans became the party of slavery and anti-civil rights. But my point is that's important because the Democrats realized early on that they needed the black vote, especially in these cities, these densely populated areas, to give them elections, because without it, they couldn't win. And it's the same thing with these suburban mom groups and everything else. Look, they have to, this is the thing, they've really created a problem for themselves, because if any of these particular constituencies that they've carved out for themselves with identity politics start to shift away, they're in real trouble. And so, Donald Trump got almost 20% of the black vote in 2020 there, and that was huge.
Yeah, I mean, he was trending in that race. I think at the end of the day,
that continues to happen.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of an audio issue here, but let me amplify what Drew was saying there. The trends are crystal clear here. Republicans in 2018 were getting right at less than 10% of the black vote, and if these numbers are correct, particularly among black men, that could rise significantly. And Drew's point is, what's the Democratic Party if they lose that segment of their voters? It literally could be a party on the ropes. Same thing with Latinos. We've been saying it forever. It doesn't matter whether you're white, black, Latino, Asian. People want the same thing. They want to have safety where they live. They don't want to have crime. They want to educate their kids, and not this wokeism. They don't want boys playing on the girls' soccer team. And they want stable prices. They don't want to be paying $5 to $6 a gallon for gas, and they don't want to be paying $4 for a carton of eggs. I mean, these are kitchen table issues, education issues, basic things. And I'm going to echo what Drew said a little while ago. What are the Democrats running on? Well, they're running on, we passed a bill to build more chip factories. Okay, great. Well, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is not an Inflation Reduction Act at all. Again, I don't know what they're going to run on. So, Drew, I feel really good about tonight, and I think we're going to know very early on as some of these trends develop in the House races in Virginia, the Senate race in New Hampshire. Will J.D. Vance beat Tim Ryan by 8 to 10 points in Ohio? Will Ron DeSantis roll up double-digit wins in Florida? Marco Rubio, will he win 8 to 10 points? I'm optimistic. Florida's a tighter election, so it could be a little tighter than expected, but I'm still expecting big nights there. But again, if we start seeing some of these races where the figures are expanded, then it could be really a great night. Drew, is your audio back now? Are we hearing you okay now?
I think so. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Your audio's back. Okay, good. All right, so Drew, I want to go through a couple prognostications, we'll call them. And these are from credible people. We're not going to give you some BS Democratic talking point or Republican talking point here. But I want to give you a couple of them, and then Drew, I'd like you to comment on it. Larry Sabato, University of Virginia Political Science. He has what he's called the crystal ball. He's generally pretty accurate. He's calling for the Senate 51-49 Republican, the House 24 pickups for a 237-198 advantage, and he's projecting both Walker in Georgia and Oz will win. Thoughts on Sabato? What he's saying? Is he pretty much on the mark, conservative, or is he off base there?
I think he's being very conservative. I think that what he's saying is that's a guarantee. That's how I interpret the Sabato poll, because, he's coming in at 51 Senate seats, for example, and it's possible that we get 53. So I think that that's the bottom, of what to expect.
Yeah, I agree with you on the bare minimum there. We just got done talking about, the percentage vote pickup. Real Clear Politics, who, again, is a neutral site. Really, really good historical record. They've got Republicans picking up 3 seats in the Senate, 31 seats in the House, a couple governor's seats. My view is they're probably closer to right there. Let's go through the individual races now, Drew. I'm going to talk about 2 to start off with here. Ron Johnson looks like his lead has gone up 5 or 6 points in Wisconsin. Are we seeing any probability, a better term to use, that Mandela Barnes could pull an upset there?
Man, that's tough. I mean, look, the hard thing is anything is nearly possible in this particular race.
Right.
I don't know. I'm hesitant.
Well, I'll put your hesitancy at ease. I think Ron Johnson, 2-term senator, I think he is going to win Wisconsin. It may be a little bit tighter than the 5 to 6 points. I do believe it's going to be tighter than that. I think he's going to come out somewhere a 2 to 3 point win in Wisconsin. I really believe that. Adam Laxalt in Nevada. Polls are showing a 5 to 6 points advantage. Drew, can that be true? I mean, we're not too far from Nevada here. I think that's optimistic. I mean, my view on Nevada, if you can eke out a 1 to 2 point win, heck, we haven't won a seat in the Senate there. It's been a lot of years. What are your thoughts on Nevada?
I think it's possible that's true. They've got a large Hispanic population as well, which is, also trending Republican these days. But look, I mean, Republicans have been pouring enormous resources into that race. I mean, tons of people have been out there rallying for him and trying to drive people to vote Laxalt. And, that campaign, I mean, I told you before, I turn on the TV and the only thing that they run against Laxalt is his position, against abortion. That's all they have.
That's all they have. Well, I'll tell you this, folks. Don't kid yourself. In Nevada, the price of gasoline there is almost as high as it is here in California. And when you're seeing people regularly, and again, this is a shock to some people around the country, gas in Nevada is $5 to $6 a gallon. I mean, it is. And here in California, it's $5.50 to $6.50. But that's where it is, and people see it every day. I think Laxalt pulls out a win in Nevada. I think the Culinary Union, I think some of them are going to actually vote for Laxalt too. Now let's go to some tight ones here. Okay. Arizona tied, New Hampshire within 2 points, Washington State within 2 points. Give me your thoughts on those 3 races, Drew.
Yeah, look, I mean, Arizona, I hope it's a clean sweep in terms of Republicans. I'll add this, Katie Hobbs, of course, who refused to debate Carrie Lake there, who's just a disgrace. She's the secretary, well, I'll say her one job, right, is to make sure that the elections are conducted efficiently, streamlined, functional. 25% of the voting machines in Maricopa County today have been offline, not working. Printers have been out of ink. And that's Katie Hobbs. So, I think that it's amazing to watch because she should be getting shellacked here shortly. but the incompetence, which is the reason that, hopefully Americans are showing up to vote these people out of office and elect Republicans. They're showing their same incompetence on election day, whether it's Katie Hobbs incapable of doing her job of making sure that everything runs smoothly on election day, or it's the illegals that are crossing the border as we speak.
Yeah, the Arizona, to me, Katie Hobbs is one of the worst candidates I've ever seen. I mean, people talk about Carrie Lake, and she's photogenic, and she obviously was on the news for 20 years. Listen, her opponent is terrible. Let's just call it what it is. We've got a really good candidate for governor of Arizona. Katie Hobbs is not one of them. Washington State. Can Tiffany Smiley pull off an upset of Patty Murray, a 5-term senator?
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's a tougher one to pull off, but again, that is possible. I mean, I think certainly, worst case scenario, it's going to be pretty close,
right?
And that's going to defy the history of that state for a long time. Obviously, I mean, 5 terms. That's the kind of movement we're seeing right now in terms of rejecting this agenda. But again, we'll see. I mean, I can't make a call on that one, for sure. That's optimistic. I mean, I hope so. That would be amazing. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that would be if she wins, and you're talking about a 55 to 56 seat majority. General Bullock in New Hampshire, he's run a really, really good race. I saw a poll yesterday heading +1, but again, to unseat a 2-term Democrat, that's not an easy slog, particularly in New Hampshire in the Northeast, where up until maybe this year, Republicans were sort of a rarity in the Northeast.
Yeah. I mean, I just, where do these people come from? I mean, aren't you astonished when we were talking about, whether it's New Hampshire or Rhode Island or a lot of these states? I mean, it's just, it'll be an interesting thing to continue to study and try and understand after the results come in, because I mean, look, some of these states, they weren't like DeSantis states. They didn't get some broad coalition of Republicans who abandoned blue states and came to move there. This is showing that people are they've been growing tired. They're awake. They're more enlightened than we thought, and I think that's offers a lot of hope for this country.
Yeah, and General Bullock has run a really, really good campaign. He's out among the people. He's talking to people. His opponent, I haven't seen too much of. If Bullock can pull off New Hampshire, again, it's going to be a great night for Republicans. Now let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla race here. I mean, more media attention really on Pennsylvania and Georgia. Let's talk about Pennsylvania. Oz has surged towards the end. I have a gut feeling Oz is going to pull it out, Drew. I cannot stomach the thought of John Fetterman being in the United States Senate. And I trust people's instincts. The only thing concerns me about Pennsylvania is the Democrats had a huge early vote lead. But the optimism I'm sharing about Oz, are you in my camp on that one?
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that Oz couldn't win and wouldn't win that election. I mean, look, early on, we heard the Democrats try and we heard, McConnell kind of make claims about quality of candidates on the Republican side. I don't want to hear a word from anybody on the left about quality of candidates when Fetterman, is running for a Senate seat in Pennsylvania. It's impossible to me to fathom that the people of Pennsylvania could elect Fetterman into the Senate. I'm sorry. That's a state that went for Trump in 2016 without some of the interference and things. Things could have been different for Trump in 2020, even in Pennsylvania.
Right.
So that is not a deep blue state anymore.
No.
It hasn't been for a little while. And so, Fetterman is the worst candidate, one of the worst candidates in American history.
Yeah.
So give me a break.
I mean, he reminds me, honest to goodness, there was a race that the Republicans had an easy win. This goes back, 4 or 5 cycles. And the Republican candidates started talking about witches in some north, I think it was Maryland or something like that, 4 or 5 elections ago. Anyhow, we had a surefire win, and she turned it to a loss. I'm in your camp. I cannot comprehend the fact that Pennsylvania, which, again, let's talk about the history. It did go for Trump in 2016, and it officially lost it by 80,000 votes in 2020. Given the suburban moms, the enclaves around Philadelphia, the T of the state, which is solid Republican, I got to believe Dr. Oz is going to pull it out. I'm in your camp. The concept of John Fetterman being a senator, I can't get my arms around that. So I'm in your camp. And a lot of pollsters are seeing that too. I think Oz is going to pull out Pennsylvania. And folks, again, if Oz wins Pennsylvania, I feel really great about all the other races Republicans are having to defend. That will mean Democrats had no pickups. None. Okay? And we'll get into some of those other races here in a second. But if Fetterman loses and Oz wins, we will defend all our other seats because Rubio's winning big in Florida. J.D. Vance, reports have him over Ryan by 8 to 10 points in Ohio. Bud looks like he's going to win by 4, 5, 6 points in North Carolina. I mean, I don't see any other Republicans on the endangered list, frankly, assuming Ron Johnson pulls his out in Wisconsin. So if Oz can win, now you start looking at the pickup pieces. And there is optimism in Georgia that Herschel Walker could hit 50%. I'm not in that camp. I just don't think he hits 50 tonight. I hope I'm wrong, but my gut feeling tells me he's going to be in that 49% range. And if that's the case, we're going to have a runoff in December. But the reason I'm really optimistic about it is because if Republicans come out of tonight greater than 50, if they come out 51 seats, Walker will win in a rout come the runoff. So I feel really good about that. So, I guess, Drew, I'm thinking that when you add everything all up and we go through these races like we did, can Tiffany Smiley win in Washington State? Sure she could, but that would be an uphill push. Could General Bullock win in New Hampshire? Polls show him, possibly right now. Another one we didn't talk about yet. Give me Arizona. Tight as a tick. Can the Republicans, with a winner in the governor's race, pull Blake Masters over the finish line in the Senate race?
Yeah, I'm really optimistic about Blake Masters. Look, he's a great candidate. He's proven himself to be very strong and articulate. I mean, his debate was phenomenal, fantastic. He definitely won that. So, yeah, I mean, I think Blake Masters. I mean, look, if they're going to vote Carrie Lake, I just find it hard to believe they wouldn't also elect Blake Masters.
I think you're right about that. There may be some split ticket voting, but at the end of the day, I think we win the governor's race. Carrie Lake maybe by 4 or 5 points because the candidate she's facing is hideous. I mean, just one of the worst candidates we've ever seen. Not in Fetterman's league, but up there. And so I think you might see that too. So, again, heading into the evening, if Oz can hold serve in Pennsylvania, boy, it opens up a lot of positive things to happen. And I want to talk about one thing we haven't did a whole lot of focus on, but the lockdown queen herself up in the governor of Michigan, Drew, there's reports that Gretchen Whitmer could lose to Tudor Dixon in what would be a huge upset. Any thoughts on that governor's race?
Look, I mean, that's just poetic justice. That needs to happen for the country. I mean, that's one of the most important races, at least I think, emotionally for the cause right now, is taking her down. I mean, I think it's possible. Look, I mean, Whitmer was not popular in her state because of what she did. I mean, she was a hypocrite 10 times over. She was a horrendous governor. So I think that Tudor Dixon could win that. And I really, really hope she does. Again, I mean, that's a harder one to just say, yeah, it's going to happen, but gosh, I mean, what a lousy governor.
Boy, she is definitely one of the worst. All right, so we're almost there, Drew. Time to give your and my final thoughts on our predictions. We've heard everybody else talk. I'll start first, and I'll give you the closing piece. I think tonight, at the end of the evening tonight, we'll be sitting here with 50 Republican seats, and there's going to be 3 that will not be called tonight. Georgia, I think, will head to a runoff, which we will win. Arizona, I think, is going to be too close to call tonight. I think we will win Arizona. And I think Pennsylvania, because of the absentee ballot, they're not going to be able to have all the votes counted. I think we will eventually win that, but I don't think we'll win that until tomorrow. So I think overall, I'm seeing Republicans 52 seats, 50 plus 3. We're going to end up with 53 seats in the United States Senate because I think we win all 3 of those races. Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona. I think we win all 3 of them. And I think we win Nevada also. Those I feel great about those. So we could end up 53 there, 53, 54 maybe. 21, maybe 22, a little more House seats just because I think there are some districts that it's not as easy now. But if we come out there with 53 plus in the Senate, 21, 22 in the House, that's how. And I think we pick up those 2 governor seats. And we also pick up the governor of Oregon maybe. But that's my final call. Drew, give me your thoughts as we get ready to close it out here.
Yeah. I mean, I still hold firm. I think that the 50, 51 or the 51, is just a bottom guarantee. I'm 53 is kind of where I'm at. So yeah. I mean, I think 53 seats in the Senate. We know that we're going to take control of the House. It's a matter of, what the percentage is, but it's really, it's less important, there because we know that we're going to be guaranteed essentially, if you will, a majority in the House.
So you and I are both sitting here, 52, 53, 54 in the Senate and control of the House, maybe 20, 25 seats. Now, final question, and I'm going to let you run. All right, what is Biden's reaction to this going to be, assuming we get some type of brainwave coming out of the White House once they see their policies have been defeated tonight?
Well, after they question the results of the election, he'll swiftly begin to shift blame and say that these Republicans must work with me to fix and repair this economy. He'll be calling on them to basically vote Democrat. He'll be setting this stage for the next, 2 years in which he'll try to make himself look like the good guy and hold them responsible for all of his devastating policies. So, look, I mean, this is just the beginning. We don't have the White House right now. People need to understand. I'm not downplaying the significance of these midterms. It is absolutely important, but this is just stopping the bleeding. Yeah. We can't get anything passed legislatively because he can veto it.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to say I'm in your camp. I'm not going to temper the enthusiasm because I think tonight is the first step. But it is like applying a tourniquet. It is stopping the bleeding, and I think that'll happen. And my final piece tonight, I think that the media will see Republican wins, and they're going to say it's expected. But again, if the wins are way bigger than some people are talking about, then they're going to have no place to hide. Drew, I can't thank you enough for joining me, not only today, but through the entire election season, the commentary, a lot of things we talked about a year ago, 6 months ago. It basically has all come to fruition. So thank you for joining me today. Drive safe as you head back into Napa Valley.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Yes, we will. Okay, folks, that's it. We've covered the election. Everybody get out and vote. Let's watch the returns tonight. And hopefully, with God's grace, we can have a nice, solid Republican win tonight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for viewing. I'll see you tomorrow with Joe Visconti, and we will analyze the results of today. Have a good evening. See you.